The Forest Friends, Chapter 5, Spider Silk Gorge.
The last traces of sunlight had faded when they reached Spider Silk Gorge. Grace's never-ending torch cast strange shadows as they stood at the edge, looking down into the misty depths. Massive strands of silvery spider silk stretched across the gorge like a giant's harp strings, gleaming in the torchlight.
We don't really have to go through there, do we?
Grunt whispered, clutching his heart-shaped rock tightly.
It's the quickest way to Mount Mistpeak.
Grace said, consulting the map.
Going around would take us through the bog of bad memories, and that would add hours to our journey.
Sparkletwig fluttered closer to the nearest silk strand, her glow reflecting off its surface.
These webs belong to the Silver Sisters,
she explained.
They're ancient spiders who've lived here since the forest was young. They're actually quite wise, when they're not hungry.
When they're not hungry,
Grunt squeaked. Tommy moved closer to examine the silk strands. They were thick as rope and spaced just far enough apart that they could potentially use them to cross the gorge.
Could we walk across?
He suggested tentatively.
That's exactly what we need to do.
Sparkletwig nodded.
But there's a catch. The Silver Sisters enchanted their webs. You can only cross if you solve their riddle.
As if on cue, a soft voice echoed from the shadows.
What walks on 4 legs in the morning, 2 legs in the afternoon, and 3 legs in the evening?
More voices joined in, creating an eerie chorus.
Answer wisely, or join our collection. Many have tried, many have failed. Their shadows now dance in our webs forever.
Tommy saw movement in the darkness. Enormous spiders, their bodies shimmering like moonlight, emerged from the mist. They were beautiful in a scary sort of way, with intricate patterns on their backs that seemed to shift and change.
I know this one.
Grace whispered excitedly.
My grandmother told me this riddle. It's about...
Wait,
Tommy interrupted softly.
I think we each need to figure out part of it. That's why we're a team, right?
Sparkletwig beamed.
Clever boy. Yes, the Silver Sisters' riddles must be solved together or not at all.
The friends huddled closer, speaking in whispers.
Well, what has different numbers of legs at different times?
Tommy asked.
Oh,
Grunt bounced slightly.
baby animals start on 4 legs, like the wolf cubs near my cave.
Grace's eyes lit up.
Yes, and then humans walk on 2 legs, like we do now.
But what about the evening part? 3 legs?
Tommy wondered. They thought hard until Sparkletwig gently prompted.
What does Grandmother use to help her walk, Grace?
A walking stick.
Grace exclaimed. Then her eyes widened with understanding.
It's a person. A human crawls as a baby on 4 legs, walks on 2 legs as an adult, and uses a cane or walking stick in old age, like 3 legs.
The Silver Sisters moved closer, their multiple eyes glinting in the torchlight.
Speak your answer together,
They commanded. The 4 friends joined hands and spoke in unison.
A human.
The spider silk began to glow with a soft blue light, and the strands widened slightly, forming a more stable path across the gorge.
Wisdom shared is wisdom multiplied.
The Silver Sisters chanted.
You may cross our gorge, brave young ones, but beware. The Shadow Collector passed this way not long ago, and its power grows with each shadow it steals.
Grunt still looked nervous about crossing, but Tommy squeezed his large hand.
We'll go together, okay? Just don't look down.
One by one, they stepped onto the glowing silk bridge. Grace led the way with her torch, followed by Tommy and Grunt walking side by side, Tommy still holding the org's hand, while Sparkletwig fluttered alongside them, providing extra light. As they reached the middle of the gorge, a dark shadow passed overhead, and they heard the now familiar beat of massive wings. They froze, pressing themselves flat against the silk bridge, hardly daring to breathe as the Shadow Collector soared past. thankfully not noticing them in the mist. When they finally reached the other side, Grunt let out a huge sigh of relief that stirred the leaves on nearby trees.
We did it.
He grinned, then quickly covered his mouth, remembering they needed to stay quiet.
And look,
Tommy pointed ahead. Through a gap in the trees, they could see Mount Mistpeak looming closer, its summit still hidden in clouds.
The hard part's still to come?
Grace said, studying the map.
The path ahead leads through the Valley of Whispers, and they say no one can cross it without facing their deepest fears.
Tommy felt a shiver run down his spine, but when he looked at his friends, brave Grace with her torch and knowledge, gentle Grunt with his huge heart, and sparkling Sparkletwig with her magic, he knew they could face whatever lay ahead. As they moved deeper into the forest, the whispers began.
To be continued.